Now, before moving on to some of the big name tumor, especially which are kind of a horrifying, we are going through the tumor section, and I will be starting from the benign tumors, which are kind of a benign, and more indolent, and more forgiving in nature. We'll be briefly discussing in this section what is the definition of a benign lesion, how to make diagnosis, or what are the different treatment strategies in case of benign lesion. So there are multiple other lesions, for example, osteochondroma, multiple enchondromatosis, exostosis, then is a fibrous dysplasia. Now these are all tumors, but as they are tumor-like conditions, but they are benign in nature, so they are not that aggressive, and usually these tumors have a slow recurring course as a result, and usually present as a isolated lesions. So coming to the one of the first and foremost common is osteochondroma. It's actually a benign cartilaginous neoplasm derived from aberrant subperiosteal nest of physeal cartilage, which grows and matures according to the normal enchondral ossification. As the name suggests, it's a chondroid part as well as the osteoid part as well. It's actually a bone tumor surrounded by a cartilaginous cap. It's usually common in males, especially in the adolescent years, and most common age is usually 10 to 30. With long bones, usually particularly femur and humerus, it's very common over there, and it's a metaphyseal tumor that it's mostly present in the metaphysis of the long bone, especially the distal femur. Symptoms secondary to the formation of an overlying bursa due to friction. What actually happens is this usually presents as a bony hard mass, which is usually around the knee, and as I told you, is mostly in the metaphyseal area of the distal femur. And as it is a benign tumor, but we again have to go through the detailed history, examination, and all the investigations which is required to make it sure that we know what's the diagnosis. Then the last option is actually the biopsy, and for this case, as it's a benign tumor, the excisional biopsy is performed, that the whole of the mass is actually excised en masse and sent for histopathology. Now if you see it over here, this is classical representation. This is the metaphyseal region. This is the epiphysis. It usually protrudes out of the bone, and if you see it on MRI, this is a bony part. It's a hard bony mass surrounded by a cartilaginous cap. Usually this is classical of osteochondroma. Coming to the enchondroma, it's again, as it's tumors of chondroid variety, as the name suggesting chondroma, and then it's benign as well. But the difference is that it's inside the cavity. That is, usually it's intramedullary neoplasm made of well differentiated hyaline cartilage. Its form is this kind of a proliferation of hyaline cartilage, which that's why it has a chondroma in its name, but it's intramedullary, that's why called enchondroma. It's usually asymptomatic. Sometimes it may present with pain, or it may be an isolated finding at all. The common location includes the tubular bones of the hand, followed by femur and humerus. It's more common in the hand especially. And there is a specific terms as well. There are two different syndromes which may be associated with the hand as well. The diagnosis is usually on the X-ray and biopsy. If somebody gets an X-ray of the hand, this is usually present in the metacarpal or phalanges, and this is actually a balloon-like lesion, mainly in the metaphyseal to diaphyseal region, and sometimes it's isolated, sometimes there are multiple enchondromas are present. The treatment is removal through curettage, that is, extended curettage has to be done. We take out all the tumor which is inside it first of all, and then we have with the high-speed burr, then organ beam laser therapy is actually used to kill the remaining cells which are present, and then the cavity is either filled with the bone graft, or this can be filled with the bone substitute such as calcium sulfate or polymethyl methacrylate bone cement. This is a classical presentation. If you see, it's a lytic lesion. The radiolucencies usually present in the metaphysis to diaphyseal area, and the most common part is that it's intramedullary. It won't be present outside the bone. And if you see it over here, there is some degree of it's benign because there is definitive lytics, and if you see it clearly over here, that there is abrupt ending of this lesion and then the bone starts. So actually there is wide margin actually which is available with the bone and the tumors. Usually the treatment is extended curettage using organ beam therapy with high speed burr and use of bone cement or bone graft. The other is periosteal chondroma. Again, as the name suggests, it's a chondroma that is of chondrite variety, or it's actually, but again, periosteal means a line just outside the periosteum. As the periosteum it covers the bone like a sleeve, so just abutting the outer cortex with which is a chondrite variety usually is most likely periosteal chondroma. It's a rare benign cartilage neoplasm occurring in the surface of the bone. Usually chondromas are in the children or young adults. Prefers metaphysis of long bone and particularly humerus. Now the difference between this chondrite variety and other variety of the tumor is that usually these chondrite varieties due to calcification usually appear spiculated, punctate appearance. Usually they are like popcorn like lesions or can be seen as well, and that is why due to the calcification of these lesions. And if it's present in the metaphysis in a child, then probably it's pericosteal chondroma. But if the same kind of a punctate popcorn like or spiculated salt and pepper like appearance has been seen over there in the epiphysis, then the first thing which comes to mind is most likely this is chondroblastoma. Presents with pain and palpable lump as it has a cartilaginous cap as well, so it usually presents with a firm hard mass. If you see it over here, this again classical is metaphyseal area, but if you can appreciate with case of osteochondroma, it was protruding out of the bone with no association with the cortex, but it's kind of a juxta cortical. It appears as it is abutting the cortex as well. It's not actually going away from the cortex. Usually in case of osteochondromas, there is not that much calcification like over here. If you can see, this is classical popcorn like appearance of spiculated punctate calcifications can be seen over here. And in case osteochondroma, there is usually a pedunculated or sessile variety, but pedunculated usually protrudes out and away from the bone. This usually resembles more of a sessile like variety, but the main part is that it's very juxta cortical, that is usually periosteal, just outside the periosteum. Now this is, what do you see on the first appearance? As I just told you, the classical presentation of enchondroma is that it's present in the hand. Usually it's intramedullary. There is a lytic balloon-like lesion over here. Now, there's not just one. They usually single lesion, but if there are multiple lesions, this is called as multiple chondromas or multiple enchondromatosis, because there are multiple enchondromas. And if you see this over here, as I've just told you, if you can appreciate, there are multiple enchondromas of the hand. There are multiple balloon-like swellings which are all intramedullary. There are actually two syndromes associated with multiple enchondromatosis of hand. One is the Ollier's disease and the other is Maffucci disease. The important point was that if it is a single lesion, yes, we can take it out, we can do the extended curettage, but you cannot take out all these lesions. So then the management is slightly different when there is multiple enchondromatosis versus there is single lesion. Enchondroma is present. As I just told you, there is two syndromes. One is the Ollier's disease, the other is the Maffucci disease. So what is Ollier's disease? It is the multiple chondromas within the hand of one limb, usually wider hemispheric distribution, non-hereditary and sporadic, affects tubular bones of the hand and the foot and presents as a bony swelling in childhood. If you see it over there, so multiple swelling as well. The next was Maffucci syndrome. Now, multiple enchondromatosis of hand is Ollier's. Multiple enchondromatosis associated with hemangiomas is Maffucci syndrome. So what are they? They are multiple chondromatosis associated with multiple cutaneous and deep hemangiomas. Hemangiomas may be seen on image by phlebotomies. Histologically more cellular than solitary chondromas, more proliferative potential. But usually, if multiple enchondromatosis is present, then we usually observe these patients. There is always a chance of developing chondrosarcoma from this. And if they do develop some chondrosarcoma, then we have to treat them accordingly, but usually they have to be kept for observation, because there is always a chance. In case of Ollius disease, there's 25% chance of these any of the enchondroma developing into chondrosarcoma, but in case of Maffucci, this chance actually increases to 50%. Now, another rare disease called, but it's also benign, chondromyxoid fibroma. What we get out of the first name is it's a cartilaginous tumor because it's chondrovariety, and fibroma means most likely it is fibromyxoid as well. So there will be chondroid matrix as well as fibromyxoid matrix as well. So it's a benign cartilaginous tumor, lobules containing lobules of fibromyxoid and chondroid tissue. It's rare. 0.5% of all tumors of the benign tumors of the bone. The common sites are long bone metaphysis, especially tibia and pelvis, and usually highly it's rare that to be seen outside the tibia, but most common is the tibia. It's a slow growing, insidious, mild, usually presents a mild to moderate pain. The treatment is intralesional curettage. As I know that the curettage means extended curettage, taking all the tumor out with high-speed birth and killing the remaining cells with organ beam lasers and packing it with the bone cement or bone graft. This is the classical presentation. Metaphysis, it's again intralesional, isolated usually, and if you see it's balloons up like a bubbly lesion is usually seen in the proximal tibial metaphysis. Coming to the chondroblastoma, again, as the word suggests that it's a cartilaginous tumor because it has a chondro in its name, and blastoma means it's some kind of immature cells as well. So it's a benign tumors of childhood that occur most commonly at the epiphysis, usually end of the long bone. As I just told you, periosteal chondroma was in the metaphysis, and chondroblastoma is actually in the epiphysis, but it's also of the childhood tumor. It presents with pain, causes joint effusion stiffness because it's inside the joint, usually in the epiphysis. Rarely oval or lytic lesion ranging from 1 to 7 centimeters. It could be of any size, but usually the common area is the epiphysis. And the most common area is the proximal tibial epiphysis. Now, this is if a child comes to you with proximal epiphyseal lesion around the knee, then probably it is most likely chondroblastoma. The other important point is to differentiate over here is that if probably it's not visible very clearly in this X-ray, but usually chondroblastomas also have, as they are chondroid variety, they also have calcifications. And other lesions, for example, GCT and chondrosarcomas, there can be differentiated, one on the age and other on the presence of speculated calcifications as well. Then other two lesions, osteoid, osteoma, it's also a benign lesion, but as the name suggests, it contains the osteoid matrix. A small benign tumor formed by osteoid and woven bone surrounding by hollow of reactive bone. It's common in 10 to 20 years of age, more common in males, usually seen in the long bones, particularly the proximal femur. Proximal femur is most common, but proximal femur metaphysis is involved. Sometimes it can be diaphyseal as well. If you see it over here, the classical presentation is a swelling of the femur diaphysis, but if you see it on the CT, this is classical presentation called as nidus is always present in case of osteoid osteoma. And another hallmark when we are taking the history of these patients, and usually this can tell you that the pain they have usually is relieved at rest by taking aspirin or some kind of a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So the most common hallmark is that the diaphyseal, they on CT, there's a nidus present, and that usually gets relieved by use of NSAIDs. Treatment, initially, all you have to do is to treat them as the pain gets relieved by these NSAIDs. Then just give them NSAIDs, and usually they disappear as the child grows, the adolescent grows into adulthood. That usually they disappear. But if they don't disappear despite being used of NSAIDs, then the next option is CT guided radiofrequency ablation, because this needles usually contain these cells, and they can be radiofrequency needle ablation can be done on that point, a particular point where this osteoid osteoma is present. Now this is histopathology of osteoid osteoma. Now coming to the osteoblastoma, it's very similar to osteoid osteoma, but there are certain differences as well. It's also a benign tumor of osteoblast, but usually that was more common in the peripheral region, for example, proximal femur, proximal tibia, in this area. But in case of osteoblastoma, most commonly it occurs in the spine region, and that is also in the posterior elements of the spine. Larger, usually they are more large, 1.5 to 2 centimeters, the upper limit for osteoid osteoma, but these lesions usually more than 2 centimeters. They are more common in children and teenagers. Predilection for spine in the posterior, especially posterior elements of the spine. Although even osteoid osteomas can also be present in this posterior aspect of the spine, but there is very less likelihood of presence in spine as compared to osteoblastoma. They usually present with pain inside of the tumor and may sometimes present with nerve root compression symptoms, that they are compressing the nerve, and may present with the symptoms of sciatica, nerve root reticulopathy. So what is the treatment? Again, as we know, it's a benign tumor. If it's not giving any problem, for example, related to it's not producing spinal instability, then the treatment is extended interlesion curettage with radiofrequency ablation for smaller volume lesions. But if the large volume is present and they actually removing them will also produce some kind of a spinal instability, then you usually have to go for rarely en bloc resection and pre-operative embolization in large lesions to reduce intraoperative hemorrhage. And probably post-operatively we may have to think of some kind of spinal fusion so that the spine gets also stabilized as well. The next is desmoplastic fibroma of the bone, a benign neoplasm composed of spindle cells, collagen, which resembles a desmoid tumor of the soft tissue. It's a slow-growing region with a high rate of recurrence following excision. Usually it's in the facial area, the mandible and pelvis, alveolus of the long bones, but mainly it has predilection for membranous bones. In long bones, it usually affects metaphysis to diaphysis or metaphysial, but can extend into epiphysis as well. Grows slowly and usually with symptoms. Treated by en bloc resection and curettage. Now in this section, we have gone through mainly the benign tumors. We have gone to osteochondroma, osteoid osteoma, osteoblastoma, multiple enchondromas, and then the diseases associated with multiple enchondromas such as Olliers and Maffucci. But the bottom line is, as they are mostly benign, that means that intralesional curettage is possible, that we can take out as much as tumor as possible, even if some micrometastasis of these micro tumor cells would be present over there, then they can be treated with after resection by organ beam therapy, and then this cavity which has been created in the bone following the resection can be filled with either a bone graft or bone substitutes. Thank you very much. Keep watching sqadia.com.